Hello, and welcome back to a special Friday evening edition of the Jet Press Podcast. My name is Justin Fried, and I'm joined as always by my good friend Mike Luciano. Mike, the Jets have 8 defensive coordinator candidates, whatever you want to call them, that they have just released. I want to talk about them. How you doing, my friend? What's going on?
Well, I was surprised. I just got done playing some Bloodborne, and then I wake up to these notifications. I'm like, "Whoa, we actually got some coordinator news." This list tells me 3 things.
Wait, really quick. Can I try to guess what Bloodborne is? Because I don't know what that is.
It's a video game. Okay.
I said, can I try to guess?
Is
it like, so it's fantasy? It's a fantasy?
Yes.
Okay. All right.
It's all one word, but
I guess.
BORNE.
Anyway, what does this list tell you?
Number 1, this beat has no sources in the building right now because none of that got out. Number 2, they still want to play a very heavy blitz press man kind of scheme because a lot of the coaches they interviewed are going to run something like that. And number 3, it's probably a better opening than some people thought it was, but they did not get some of the premier guys. They did not get Al Harris. They did not get Christian Parker. They did not get a lot of the fired head coaches like Raheem Morris or Jonathan Gannon or even a Nick Rawlis. Yeah. Also, another note really quick before we get to some comments too. The Jets, I think Rosenblatt said this, the Jets did not announce any firings for like assistant coaches or stuff like that because Aaron Glenn said it's all about when we hire the DC, he'll kind of determine who he wants and who he doesn't want. Which I get. A couple comments before we do our little intro here.
For sure.
Bongo, no more leaks.
Hey, listen, Rodgers was just talking about it too. He said Pittsburgh was a lot better with that stuff. I feel like there's been more leaks coming out of that Steelers building right now than the Jets building. There's nothing coming out of Florham Park.
Dane Prods, Wink Martindale, best option. Not to spoil, but we disagree.
We'll get into that, but definitely disagree. We'll get into Martindale in a little bit. I think there's worse options on the list than Martindale, but he's not my favorite.
And Jimmy Schnugen. I don't know if I got nostalgia blinders on, but I'm all for Jim Leonard. If the secondary kept getting INT with former DBs as head coach and DC, I quit.
I got some bad news for you, Jimmy, because their entire defensive staff this past year was basically all DBs.
Chris Harris, Dre Bly, Dre Bly got a bunch of picks in the NFL.
Steve Wilkes, also a former defensive back. He also played
and defensive backs coach.
Right. The whole defensive staff was basically former DBs. But I'm with you, Jimmy. Jim Leonard, we'll get into it in a sec, but Jim Leonard, easily the biggest name on this list. I mean, maybe Wink Martindale in terms of like notoriety, but in terms of who is the hottest candidate that the Jets were able to bring in on this list, or at least get an interview with, Jim Leonard stands alone among that list for me.
You know where to find us: Apple, Google, Spotify, Overcast, wherever you get your podcasts. We are there, and we're on YouTube. Like the stream, big help. Subscribe, big help in terms of pushing us up those charts. We're also on TikTok. We got over 1,000 followers there as well, so that's all good stuff. Let's just talk about the 8, the Hateful 8 here.
Hateful 8.
I think that was a movie, wasn't it?
It probably. Is that what we're calling them, though?
I don't know. Oh, yeah, it was a movie recently with Tarantino directed. Okay, so I was right. The 8 are, our names are blocking one of them, but we'll get into it. Matthew Arujo, which I checked. That's how you pronounce it.
It's not Arroyo?
It's Arujo. That's how it's on the Dolphins website. That's how you say it.
It's got to be some Americanized pronunciation because that's definitely Arroyo.
Oh, yeah. It's like how we still have the Luciano debate in my family.
Right.
So.
I don't want the Jets to hire him now because I don't want to pronounce his name wrong.
Matthew Arujo, the defensive backs coach for the Miami Dolphins.
Is he corners coach?
Corners coach specifically, but I've heard he's been described as corners and defensive back coach. He also does not have a Wikipedia page.
Correct. I noticed that.
Ephraim Banda, or Bonda, I'm not sure, who is the safeties coach for the Cleveland Browns. DeMarcus Covington, former Patriots DC and current defensive line coach and running game coordinator for the Green Bay Packers. Our old buddy Chris Harris, the interim DC. Durante Jones, who we talked about last year, he's the defensive backs coach for the Minnesota Vikings. Assistant head coach and defensive passing game coordinator Jim Leonard of the Denver Broncos.
Yes, that Jim Leonard.
Wink Martindale, former Giants defensive coordinator, spent the last 2 years at Michigan. And Jim O'Neill, a senior defensive assistant with the Detroit Lions. Justin, first thoughts on those 8 guys.
So, I mean, immediately Jim Leonard stands out to me as the only guy here that I would put in if we were doing a tier list, if we were even like tier listing just defensive coordinator candidates around the NFL this year, Jim Leonard is S tier for me. I think he's very clearly at the top of that list.
Funny you mentioned tier list, Justin, because what I'm going to do as you go on your little spiel here is I'm going to go, hopefully this share screen business ends up working, and I'm going to go and get a handy dandy little tier list.
Aha, perfect. Well,
there we go. I don't know. Wink was the only one that didn't have a horizontal picture, so the top of his head's cut off. So we're going to have to deal with that.
It feels weird seeing, is he in a suit there?
Yeah.
So weird seeing
a tan suit too at that.
That is bizarre. I've never seen Wink Martindale in a suit.
We apologize for the big ad for Car and Driver magazine taking up a bunch of space here, but what can we do?
There we go. Now it's
Universal. Now it's Universal. All right, well, that would be the guess what ad shows up next. That would be a fun game.
Anyway, Jim Leonard, clearly the top candidate on this list. I mean, not only is there, the Jets connection, as Jimmy mentioned, there's the nostalgia blinders, but I don't want to call them blinders because Leonard has been a part of one of the best defenses in the NFL over the last couple of years. He has been Sean Payton's right-hand man, is the assistant head coach in Denver, also a former defensive coordinator at Wisconsin who called plays with the Badgers from 2017 to 2022. So he has already defensive coordinator experience. He has spent the last couple of years learning under Vance Joseph, who's one of the best defensive minds in the NFL, being a part of one of the best defenses in football. And then there's the Jets connection. I would be shocked if Leonard took the Jets job. He's already interviewed with the Cowboys for their DC opening. And there's a lot of rumors floating around out there about him potentially being a Giants defensive coordinator option, but he's clearly the belle of the ball, so to speak, of this list. If we want to just go through, let's do that. Let's go through and just tier list all these guys right now before I go on my tirades about certain candidates here. I think Leonard's clearly S tier.
Jim Leonard is clearly S tier. He is the favorite. Again, it's hard to gauge which assistants are going to be good coordinators, especially with limited experience. But and I can't be hypocritical and praise what he did at Wisconsin while saying Durante Jones was bad at LSU, and that doesn't really impact my evaluation of him. But it is impressive that he was really good at his alma mater, Wisconsin, calling plays here. Poaching from the Denver staff would have been great anyway, but to get a guy in an assistant head coach role, this might still be the best defense in the league. I know they've fallen off a little bit, but they're still one of the best in the league. To get him to come to the Jets, as unattractive an opening as it is with the lack of talent and the lack of job security, if he comes over, I don't know if they pay him just an ungodly sum for a defensive coordinator, especially an unproven defensive coordinator, but if that's what you got to do, that's what you got to do. Even if it doesn't work out, the process of hiring Jim Leonard, I don't think anybody will have any faults with that if he's the defensive coordinator next year for the Jets.
I would be stunned if it happened, genuinely stunned. He's got better offers on the table already, and I think there's more on the way. He is someone who's been very selective with interviews over the last few years too, so I think it's at least a little impressive that the Jets even got an interview with him. Now, they didn't get him in the building, as people corrected me on Twitter. This was a virtual interview, so I'll be curious to see if he's a part of the finalist whenever they do release them, maybe next week. But I'm happy that they at least got an interview with him. Maybe there's a little bit of this is his former team. Also, he notably crossed over with Aaron Glenn. He was with the Cleveland Browns in 2014 when Leonard was, when Glenn was the assistant defensive backs coach of the Browns. So he's got experience with Glenn. Obviously, there's the experience with the Jets. I don't think that's going to get him hired, but I think the Jets probably have him at the top of their list. I just don't know if it's a mutual feeling, but happy that they at least got an interview.
I like that he's there too, because it seems like of the non-defensive coordinator candidates out on the market, the big three are Al Harris, Christian Parker, and Jim Leonard.
Yeah.
And even if the Jets they're probably not going to hire one of those three because they're going to have a ton of really good options. But if they didn't even interview any of them, I think that would have been really concerning. Now, again, maybe Christian Parker wants to do all zone and Aaron Glenn wants to do all man, and they're just going to be incompatible. Who knows? Maybe that's part of it.
Eagles run a lot of man, so I'd be shocked.
I'm calling hypothetical. Let's say Christian Parker says, I want to do the exact opposite of what Aaron Glenn wants schematically, and they get rid of that. Then that's one thing. If they just struck out in all the interviews, that would have been tough. As he says, right over here, Jim Clips. I don't know much about Jim Leonard. What's his history? That's his history. For an assistant coach that has not been a coordinator, he's about as qualified as you can get for a guy as young as he is.
called plays for Wisconsin for 5 years, was even their interim head coach for a half a season, has spent the last 2 years as the defensive backs coach and pass game coordinator, and this past year was an assistant head coach of the Denver Broncos as part of one of the best defenses in the NFL and one of the best coaching staffs in the league. You're not going to get more qualified than Jim Leonhard for this job, and that's not even mentioning his ties to the Jets organization, which would make it, I mean, how fun would it be, like, having Aaron Glenn, like just
again, Aaron Glenn and Jim Leonhard are in charge of the defense.
Right. Ignore like the connotations that fans now have with Aaron Glenn because of, you know, the last year, right? What's happened. Just having two franchise, I don't want to call Jim Leonhard a franchise legend, but he was a part of some really, really fun defenses and a time in Jets history that's looked back on fondly. Having both of them leading the defense would be really cool.
One thing this is why I was high on Glenn when they hired him. Like, if the rest of the league is tripping over themselves to interview you, I think that's a good sign. As we get some sort of crazy pop-up ad. I'm sorry for that. that was weird. I've never seen that happen. Oh my God, it's still doing it.
Mike, you got a virus.
Get out of here. Oh my God. All right, so let me go.
Max can't get viruses.
Oh my God. Has that ever happened to you?
No, never once.
Never once? Okay.
What was the next name? So we can
great. Now it deleted all the images.
All
so
right. What was the next name? Let's talk about that next name.
Let's go and talk about, as we switch back our things here, as I try to get that set up here. Let's just talk about Wink a little bit.
This is what happens, by the way, when we don't have a planned stream and we just
this is live TV. Leonard and Christ would be, as a package deal, would be hilarious. Which Christ are you referring to? Jeep Christ or?
I don't know actually.
Because he is he's not with the Broncos anymore. I'm trying to think which guy that would be. But anyway, Jim Leonhard, I'm sure if he comes, is going to bring some guys from Denver.
Oh, so. probably Paul Christ from Wisconsin. That's
right. Paul Christ, of course.
He's also not coaching right now. That makes more sense. He's also not coaching right now. That would be really interesting. He was, of course, the head coach at Wisconsin for a while. That would be cool. I mean, he's an offensive coach, so I don't know how that would work out. But
let's go ahead. Let's go and go on a little bit of a Wink rant here, because I feel like if they hire him, it's going to feel like when they were talking to Rex, where I'm like, it's almost like they would get bullied into it. Because the push doesn't even seem to be from a lot of people connected to the Jets. It's a lot of beat writers for some reason who are pushed. I don't know if that's because they know him. I don't know if that's because he's a source. I don't know if that's because some may look at his time with the Giants with a little more rose-colored glasses than I think the stats would back up. But if I'm looking at this, man, like, he'd be okay. As we said on the last show, he'd be okay. But you want somebody who's going to come in and just change this same old Jets defense. And this feels like it'd be going back to a very Steve Wilksy hire. And I don't want a Steve Wilksy hire. For other teams, I think Wink might be a better hire. I think for the Jets, the timeline-wise especially, and with what Aaron Glenn's going through, doesn't seem like the best fit.
Here's the thing. I don't think there will be other teams that are interested in Wink Martindale as their defensive coordinator. I think this is probably the only DC interview that he gets this hiring cycle. And I said this on Twitter, and I kind of want to start using this phrase when I'm talking about Wink Martindale and the Jets. It feels like a marriage out of desperation for both sides. And I think there's a reason that the beat is pushing Martindale. I think he's probably the favorite for the job right now, just because I think the Jets want somebody who's got some like baseline floor of proven DC experience, has gotten, who's led NFL defenses to high levels in the past. Hey, as we got the tier list back.
Tier list and a bunch of ads for, what is that, George Foreman grill? Oh, no, it's meal prep. So, yeah, that'll clutter the screen, but I can't do much to fix that here.
Also, Wink's a guy who knows the New York area very well. Of course, he coached the Giants, and I think that's something that Woody values specifically. It just feels to me that he's a type of candidate the Jets are looking at, like, that they would want to bring in. And it feels like this is probably Wink's last shot to get back in the NFL, because I think he's probably done with college. At least if he had it his way, he'd be done with college. He spent the last 2 years at Michigan. He's gone now because of the Sharon Moore situation, and he's looking for another job. It just feels to me like a perfect marriage of desperation for both sides. Both sides kind of need each other. That said, it certainly wouldn't be an inspiring option, in my opinion. I think that the Michigan defense this past year wasn't amazing. Look, I haven't watched it.
It was okay, but the problem with doing that from college is Matt Patricia this year allowed 9 points a game at Ohio State.
Sure.
Half the games Michigan played, talent-wise, they just beat people down.
Right.
So how much of that is Wink and how much of that is just Michigan has NFL players, and Teams like Northwestern and Purdue don't.
I can't lie and say I watched every Michigan football game this year. I definitely wasn't paying close enough attention to their defense to know schematically how they were doing. It's not like when we're watching the Jets and we have a better idea of how to break it down because we watch every single play. I do. If the Jets hire Wink Martindale, maybe I'll take that upon myself, but I don't know now. But I do know that he was great with the Ravens. The Giants stint, I think, started well, and there were instances of the defense playing well, but you also saw some of the similar flaws that I would be concerned about with the Jets, which is, as I think we talked about this in the Wednesday show, Mike. The Jets last year blitzed at one of the higher rates in the NFL. They cooled down as the year went on because they just literally couldn't. But like they blitzed at a pretty high rate for a lot of the year, and they were wholly ineffective on blitzes. Wink Martindale blitzes at an obscenely high rate. I would be very curious to see how this defensive personnel that the Jets have would respond to a Wink Martindale defense. I think the old heads would love this hire because he's a football guy and he's going to be screaming on the sideline. And when you picture,
some fans don't want winning; they want coaches that yell at players.
When you picture, like when I think of what an NFL defensive coordinator looks like, I think of Wink Martindale. I don't know if that's a stereotype.
Either Wink Martindale or Aaron Glenn.
Or Aaron Glenn in some ways.
Those are the two.
Yeah, in some way, absolutely. But it's just like as a mean yeller of a head coach, right? He lives, breathes, dies football. I would be concerned about his scheme being a little archaic and not being a great fit for the Jets. And also, that's not even talking about the personality stuff, which is, what got him kicked out of his last two jobs in the NFL. But I wouldn't put him in hell. I don't know about you.
I was going to put him in C.
That's where I was thinking as well. C feels fair for me. I think you could do worse because at least the guy can be an NFL defensive coordinator. It feels similar
at a decent level too. But the problem is we said that about Wilkes. Like here's the thing: if Wilkes didn't happen, I might like this hire more. But Wilkes happened, so
it feels more volatile than Wilkes. I think it has the potential to completely just combust, right? Where week 7, Glenn and Martindale are Glenn and Wink are fighting on the sideline.
Kevin Gilbride and Buddy Ryan Redux.
Sure, and they're ready to throw hands, and you're like, oh wow, this is a complete shit show. Or there's a world where maybe it actually works, and Wink proves he's still got his fastball, and maybe a Will McDonald or whoever has a resurgent year under Wink Martindale. I could see it, and we talked about. I mean, they're not going to bring him back, but a guy like Quincy Williams would be a really fun fit in a Wink Martindale defense. I think it's worse that you could do, and there's probably a couple names we're going to talk about here that are worse, but it wouldn't be an inspiring hire, although feels like he's the favorite.
Jonathan Richter, Wink Martindale is a better game show host. Yeah. Yes. Boot up some old episodes of Tic Tac Doe instead of hiring him.
Sure.
That was the show that he.
I know he's a former game show host.
Okay, I don't know one of the ones.
I don't know what that game show is.
Tic Tac Doe. I'd imagine it's related to Tic Tac Toe somehow. I can surmise that.
Feels like a cooking, or sounds like a cooking show.
No, it doesn't.
Doe.
Yeah, what do you Doe? Tic Tac Doe, money game show.
Oh, okay, sure. I was thinking of like Doe.
Oh boy. Okay.
Brian says at least they didn't interview Eberflus. Absolutely, Matt
Eberflus and Aaron Glenn made the most different schemes in the league.
Oh my, of all of the former head coach / DC guys with DC experience that they could have interviewed, Eberflus probably would have been the worst.
He'd be the worst. Yeah. Who do we want to talk about next? You want to put Chris Harris in hell tier?
It almost feels unfair to do that, but.
Fans would explode.
I'll say hell for the optics of it, of the optics of running it back with the defense, like the coaching staff that led the defense last year over the final stretch of the season. And again, it feels a little unfair because any defensive coordinator would struggle with Jordan Clark and Dean Clark and Colin Saunders and Braden McGregor and Jasir Taylor and Samuel Womack, and I could go on, but it's just, man, they were averaging 35 points allowed in those final few games. Like
the Saints game, he looked okay, and then the other two.
The Saints game of the first half, it looked fine, and then it just fell apart for the rest of the season after that.
That would be that would be Aaron Glenn saying we thought all of last year was just because we didn't have any talent.
I think I think Harris could be back on the staff. Like the defensive backs, I actually thought he did an all right job with, which was his whole. That was his job before he took over. See.
0 picks.
Yeah. Outside of the 0 picks, though, like I understand that's as you would say,
wow.
As you would say, Mike. Other than that, Miss Lincoln, how was the play? I'm using your phrase there. Brandon Stevens, I thought played well enough. You saw some stuff from Rosario Thomas, from Malachi Moore, from Jarvis Brownlee. Like I don't think the DBs were necessarily underperforming under him, so I wouldn't be shocked if he's back. And also that'd just be another guy you you have to replace. I think he's pretty well respected, but yeah, he should not be a legit candidate.
They're not going to win or lose any more games because Chris Harris is the DB's coach.
No, he just certainly shouldn't be the DC.
Jonathan Richter, let's get Chad Pennington for quarterback coach. Why not?
Why not, man? Why not?
The Lions did that with Mark Brunell, and that's actually working out. So.
Is his kid still quarterback isn't his kid quarterback at Marshall? Or
he was, and then he was terrible, I believe.
Was he?
I believe he had no touchdowns and 7 picks.
Cole Pennington, how's he doing?
He's now at Gardner Webb.
Let's say he's at Gardner Webb now. That's a downgrade.
The running Bulldogs, not the Bulldogs, the running Bulldogs.
Bulldogs.
Who do you want to go with next here?
Let's go to Marcus Covington. Just get another guy.
Let's go to Marcus Covington too. Okay.
Let's go another guy with DC experience. DC with the Patriots last year, was a longtime assistant of Bill Belichick.
He was their defensive line coach for 4 years prior to that.
Yeah, it kind of feels a little bit like Chris Harris, where it's like, man, what the hell was he working with the Patriots in 2024? It didn't have a lot. I don't have the numbers in front of me. I know the Patriots defense was not very good in 2024 under him, and he was not retained when they brought in Vrabel, which was not a shock.
They were 22nd in points allowed.
At least he has DC experience. He called plays for them, right? It wasn't Mayo?
I think he did. He was 22nd in points, 22nd in yards, 10th in passing yards allowed. Okay.
Well, I'm going to see. This is what happens when we have to go live immediately. Like, I don't have time to research this.
I will say one thing on Covington. This is fresh off the presses from Freddie Boston, who runs our Packers site, Lombardi Avenue.
Shout out Freddie.
He said if Jeff Hafley becomes a head coach somewhere else, Covington is right at the top of the list of guys they would replace him with.
Okay.
They like him a lot internally.
And he's only been there for 1 year, so that's
it's kind of Durante Jones. They're very similar in that regard, except Covington.
I put him B tier then. I put him probably like B tier.
I was gonna put him on like the fringe of B or A. I'm not gonna say excited about DeMarcus Covington because the year in New England was bad, but
yeah, I think
here's the thing: if you think the year in New England was just him being kind of iffy, I think he's a B tier higher.
If
you think the year in New England as the coordinator was he had nothing to work with, like Chris Harris kind of this year, then I think you can move him to A.
I'd put him B just because we've seen a year where it was bad. And I would prefer Durante Jones, and I want to separate the two and I'd put Jones in A tier. You know, we could jump to him next.
Yeah, but I would not get too mad about DeMarcus Covington. I know Patriots fans might be like, oh, I'm so sorry you got hit, but like,
given what they're working with, we're grading on a curve here, right? Like, they're not going to get Al Harris. They're not going to.
He's only 36 years old. He'll be 37 in March, so another younger hire.
They're not going to get Raheem Morris, who that's somebody that we talked about. We would probably have liked just because he's coached good defenses in the past, and obviously has the head coach experience. I think Covington's fine, perfectly mid to maybe slightly above mid option, just because he has DC experience and seems to be held in high regard in Green Bay.
I just want they can't hire anyone over the age of 50. I want like a younger hire. Maybe that's ageist to me.
There's 2 names on this list over the age of 50? Is Jim O'Neill also?
He is 47, so.
All right, but he's kind of like
I believe he is. Let me see.
Well, actually, I'm pretty sure Durante Jones is close to 50, but he doesn't have, the experience. Yeah, Durante Jones is 47 as well.
And Jim O'Neill is 47 too.
So, Durante Jones made his coaching debut as a graduate assistant at Lenore-Rhyne in 2001.
Whoa. Let's talk about Durante Jones.
Let's talk about him.
I feel like he's A tier. I feel like he's the second best guy on this list.
I agree. He would be my second. He's my preferred realistic option because I don't think Jim Leonard's a realistic option. I know the Jets interviewed him. I don't think he's a realistic candidate. I think Durante Jones, if they hire him as the DC, I'm very happy with that. I don't think he's a slam dunk can't miss hire, but he is. And I want to call him young. I know he's 47 years old, but
young in NFL terms,
right? Young in terms of being an NFL coach. He's not been a defensive coordinator at the NFL level. He was a DC for 1 year at LSU. He is Brian Flores' right-hand man in Minnesota. Based on everything that I've heard about him, Flores swears by him. And if Flores were to receive a head coach job this offseason, the internal candidate they believe would replace him would be Durante Jones. So similar to Covington there, I just think there's more upside with him because you maybe don't have that 1 year of him being a DC where it didn't work. And I also think, that Vikings defense is awesome, dude. And getting to learn under Brian Flores the last couple of years has probably been very, very beneficial for him. I have no issue plucking from that Flores coaching tree and taking a chance on a guy like Durante Jones.
Feels kind of Engstrandy. Like, all right, pluck from the Ben Johnson tree, run 75% of his scheme, and then we'll go from there. Yeah. Durante Jones, of these guys here, I think of the guys they interviewed, 2 of them will be defensive coordinators next year, and that's Jones and Leonard.
Yeah,
I think Covington will be if Hafley gets a head coaching job. I think he may take Covington with him, but I don't know. That's less likely, I think, than Flores. I think the top 2, if the Jets don't hire him, will get another job. Covington leaning towards it, but he's only 36. I'm not saying he can never be a defensive coordinator ever again because of one iffy year in New England. I think he's a perfect guy to kind of I know the Jets are going to have a great defense talent-wise next year, but he seems like a guy who kind of can figure it out, maybe especially after leaving kind of the Belichick mindset and say, oh, I've opened my mind to new ideas of how to coordinate a defense. I think he's a prime bounce back guy.
I think a third will also be because I think the Jets hire Wake Martindale, but
yeah, I hope not. Again, it wouldn't be the worst hire in the world. It would just be very uninspiring.
It'll be interesting. I'll say that.
Now we got 3 seldom known assistants. Which one do you want to go with first?
I guess let's go Jim O'Neill. He's the most known of them. Former Jets coach, by the way, Jim.
Yes, assistant defensive backs coach under Rex Ryan.
Yeah. He was.
Now the problem is everything that happened after that.
Yeah. Now he's been a defensive coordinator, 2 different stops in the NFL as a defensive coordinator for the Browns in 2014 and 2015, when
they had Mike Patton, who another former Jets guy, who coached Jim Leonard.
And they also had Aaron Glenn on that staff, who was an assistant defensive backs coach. So that's what O'Neill feels like, a longtime Glenn associate or friend, I don't know, for lack of a better word, that's kind of in this interview.
Confidant, I don't know.
Yeah, he was also DC of the Niners in 2016. Neither of those stints went very well.
That was just, he had no shot there.
He spent the last 2 years as a defensive assistant with the Detroit Lions, of course, where he crossed paths with Aaron Glenn.
He was also at Northwestern as a defensive coordinator, and they won 4 games in 2 years.
I'm gonna say this is D tier for me.
This is firm D tier.
It's closer to hell than C, honestly.
The only reason Chris Harris is beneath him is because of what happened last year. If Chris Harris was with another team last year, and then they were interviewing him this year, he would have been above Jim O'Neill. It's just the optics of it.
Yeah, it's much more leaning towards hell than C tier for O'Neill. He's not been a defensive coordinator at the NFL level for a decade. He was out of football after his defensive coordinator stay with Northwestern went poorly, and until the Lions brought him in as a defensive assistant, where that is as low as you're going to get on the totem pole in the coaching
staff.
That's
that's just making up game plans. That's
where he's been the last 2 years. So going from that to also not having been a defensive coordinator in the NFL in a decade.
And he was bad when he was one.
Right. So now getting another defensive coordinator job would be crazy. And also it would just be like, oh, wow, Aaron Glenn hired the guy he's buddies with, who was bad. And every time he's been given the opportunity to do this, hasn't been given an opportunity in a decade, and has spent the last 3 years. I mean, he hasn't held a coaching position of any note since 2022 when he was fired as Northwestern's defensive coordinator. I'm talking myself almost into hell tier. This would be a very bad hire.
Yeah, I'm not. This just has such a lack of juice, this hire.
Yeah, it'd be bad for pretty much every possible reason.
Now, honestly, what would you prefer? If they hired Jim O'Neill, if Aaron Glenn just says, you know what, I'm calling the plays myself next year. I prefer Aaron Glenn calling the plays.
Correct. I prefer Aaron Glenn calling the plays over either of the final 2 options there that we had, the bottom 2 of O'Neill and Harris. Dude, low-key, I'd almost prefer
if they fire, I don't know, because he was another defensive backs coach, Jim O'Neill. If they get rid of Chris Harris and he replaces him, then that's fine, but not as the DC.
I'll say this right now. If the Jets hire Harris or O'Neill, I am basically out on this coaching staff.
It'll be tough to get up again.
Legitimately don't see a world where if they hire one of those guys, I mean, you never know, bro.
You never know.
You never know.
Chris Banjo was out of nowhere, and then
but Banjo at least came from some respected coaching staffs. Again, that's another guy who learned under Sean Payton, just like Jim Leonard has. But man, O'Neill and Harris are just so. O'Neill, honestly, I'd almost put him behind Harris. He's even more uninspiring of a option than Harris. At least Harris was a passing game coordinator, defensive backs coach for the Jets last year. Not that was good.
I might swap them.
Yeah, honestly, they're both hell. They both suck as options just because of the optics of it. I mean, you could,
I'll put him in D. I'll put him in D.
That's fine. But either way, man, it would suck. Not to be too hard on Jim O'Neill, but
yeah, poor he's what did I do? Jeez,
it'd be a brutal hire. Look, bring him in as as something that's not a defensive coordinator. Bring him in as when's the last time he was actually? So he was a position coach with the Raiders, where he was a DB's coach
under John Gruden.
Right. And then the last time he was a position coach elsewhere was a linebackers coach with the Bills in 2013, the year after he left Rex Ryan's staff. So,
and then he went to Mike Pettin for a couple years.
You want to talk about just underqualified given recent.
So he technically helped Jim Leonard become what he was in a very indirect way.
I guess, but yeah, very different hire for sure.
Then we got what is it, Arujo, I believe is how you pronounce it.
Yeah, that's what you said. That's not how it should be.
That's what it said on the Dolphins site. 'Cause I want to get it right because I know there's like a million ways to pronounce that. I would put him C tier behind Wink.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
Because this guy, now look, part of me is saying, man, he can't identify talent at all because look at that thing. But then also, that team should have been like bottom 3 in the league in defense, and they were okay. And they're not going to hire Anthony Weaver. Anthony Weaver was getting some head coach interviews. I don't think he gets one, but
he'll be a DC somewhere.
I think he'll be a DC somewhere. I would bet that this guy will follow him there, perhaps in maybe even an elevated role. Like I heard Weaver was a possible Giants defensive coordinator target. Baltimore, John Harbaugh again. And if he goes over there, I think he could be like another defensive backs coach. We remember that cornerback room. That cornerback room for Miami was pathetic. And he had him looking like not a great unit, but an okay one.
It ended up being all right. Well, we talked about Rasul Douglas as a possible target for the Jets when we were doing our mock off. At least I did. We were doing our mock off seasons, and I thought the defensive backs in Miami, the corners, did better than expected. Whether that was Jack Jones or whoever the hell they were bringing in there, I mean, man, it was scary hours for a while there. But it's just, man, it would be such a leap for him. He has very little high-level coaching experience. This is his, I believe, second year as a cornerbacks coach. He had spent the last couple as an assistant defensive backs coach. He's never been anything above that. He has not been coaching for very long. I believe he was coaching at Yale a few years ago.
Mike McDaniel, Yale guy. That's why.
Yeah, I get. Yeah, there you go.
Mike McDaniel went to Yale, so yeah.
The connection. Yeah, that's a good point. But this would just be such an insane leap for him. I know he was apparently a Vic Fangio guy when Fangio was there in Miami in 2023. So maybe he ends up in Philly. I don't know, but DC job just feels like a big leap. This is between C and D tier for me. I'll put him as C just because we have O'Neal at D, but man, those bottom tiers are pretty tough.
I will say this does feel like a guy where it's probably too early for him now, but if we're doing this like 2 years down the line, he's probably going to be like a top candidate. You'd rather be early than be late on a guy, I guess.
Yes, his claim to fame right now is that he overachieved with a bad defense.
He made Rasul Douglas look okay.
Right.
Yeah.
Like is that we're going to give a guy a DC job off that? That's tough, you know.
Richard McCabe has a comment. It's not showing up in the chat for some reason, but it's showing up on YouTube. What young, exciting DC wants to get on this sinking ship?
None. DC.
None. Yeah, that's why they didn't interview a ton.
That's Christian Parker was a guy that I talked about for a while, but obviously the Jets aren't going to get to interview him, and that's a shame because he's probably going to get a DC job at some point. Leonard is the big name on this list if you're looking for the young, hot shot candidate, but I don't think he's going to be a serious finalist for this job. I think he gets. It sounds like he's getting the Giants DC job if we're going to believe online rumors. If we're going to believe Ricky, everyone's famous, everyone's favorite Twitter scoops guy. If we're going to believe Ricky, it sounds like he's a heavy favorite for that Giants DC job. Which, man,
John Munkin and Jim Leonard's a pretty good.
I'm okay on the Harbaugh hire for the most part. Like I think it's a good hire for them.
It is. I think people are putting the cart before the horse with how quickly they're going to be good again. But
then, man, if the rest of the staff is Munkin and Leonard as the coordinators, that is as slam dunk home run A+ as it gets.
I will say, two things. Number one, if the Jets hired John Harbaugh, they would have gotten slammed for hiring a retread. You know that.
I don't think I don't.
There would have been some. And number two,
but I think they would have been praised.
The way reporters, people who I respect and like too, connected to the Giants, have discussed this makes me want to throw up. It's so saccharine and flowery, and you just want to vomit.
They're writing like smart.
Harbaugh said "we" because he wanted to be a Giant. I'm sure the $100 million they gave him had no impact on that.
He's getting $20 million.
He envisioned himself in the Giants check. Good. Oh my God.
He's getting $20 million a year. He's making more money than I think like every safety in the NFL. Or
what is this? Did Danielle Steele start writing for the Athletic? I mean, come on now.
It's wild.
Your mom will know who that is. She's like an old romance writer.
I doubt she will.
I'm sure. What the kids aren't in on that now? A couple more before we get to our last candidate. A couple. Sure. Excuse me. Comments here. John Bushnell, the Jets have lost the fan base. Jim Leonard would give the fan base hope. Competence plus great PR move.
It would certainly get a lot of people back on board. A lot of people that are out on the staff right now would jump back on the bandwagon if they brought in Leonard. I just would be shocked if it happens. I cannot say how shocked I'd be. In a great way, in a good way. Like, man, I'd be doing backflips, right? But I don't think it's gonna happen.
And John Bushnell again. Wink is a good PR move, is he? I don't know, but he's 62. His defenses are dated.
He is, because you could sell him on, oh, this is a guy who has plenty of DC experience, who has proven in the past to be a good defensive coordinator at the NFL level, and he just has he will win over the old heads, right? He has the appeal. Anybody above the age of 45 or 50 is going to go nuts about Wink Martindale. They're going to be like, oh, it's the best hire.
And then when he blitzes a ton and they give up 31, it's going to be Aaron Glenn's fault. Not
Joe Benigno will be calling for Wink Martindale to be head coach by week 3. That would be my
even though his defenses will be getting cooked, he has to be the head coach.
They say Glenn's soft or whatever. They need a guy who can yell.
Aaron Glenn is a lot of things. Soft is one thing I don't think
how
applies.
You know how narratives go.
And then the last one, Ephraim Banda or Banda, because I've heard both. The safeties coach for the Cleveland Browns.
So the selling point for him is that he's, another younger guy, has worked under a great defensive coordinator, maybe the best defensive coordinator in the NFL, and Jim Schwartz.
Cowboys have interviewed him too, so
yeah,
they're fairly in demand.
I actually didn't realize that. But yeah, spent the last 3 years as a safeties coach for the Browns, and they're, learning under Schwartz. The issue for him that's very much like Araujo. Again, I just hate saying that. I hope they don't hire him because I don't want to say that. The issue for him is it just feels very early. He, a few years ago, before he joined the Browns, was the safeties coach and defensive coordinator, to his credit, at Utah State.
Now, to be fair, Utah State had a very good defense. He was at Miami before that. They had some good defenses there.
They did. No, and
9 NFL defensive backs he coached in 2 years at Miami. I think that's impressive.
Yeah, no, and I like the fact that he's coming from the the Jim Schwartz coaching tree. He's probably, I'd put him top of C tier, maybe.
I'd put him end of B tier. I'd put him above Wink.
Yeah, that's why I said top of C. Yeah, top of C, end of B. Either one is fine for me.
I'll go end of B because
I think the ranking here is what matters more, and I'd put him ahead of Wink.
I think part of what made the Browns really good, Myles Garrett, but also I think the secondary was part of it, and obviously he had a big part in that. I do like being a good college. It's tough to project college to the pros. It's funny how, by the way, we're talking about how Banda is 44, and we're like, it's too early. But Jim O'Neill's 47, and it's like, oh, he's had this long,
just coaching career, coaching journeys. Banda's only been in the NFL for 3 years.
Being good at Utah State impresses me more than being good at like a Miami because of just the talent deficiency. So if you can coordinate a good defense there, that gives me more hope.
Were there any NFL guys in those Utah State?
I don't believe any, not like high-end picks.
Yeah. Well, was that when Jordan Love was there?
No, that was right after Jordan Love left. So
okay.
I believe they fired their coach because Jordan Love was very bad his last year at Utah State.
No defensive guys. The last defensive player from Utah State to get drafted? Zero chance you would get this, but the player.
Get drafted?
Yeah, 2016 third-round pick, linebacker.
Oh, God. Was it a cornerback?
No, linebacker.
Oh, this is killing me. Hold on.
He was like an outside linebacker, NFC team.
Was it one of the Vigils?
Amazing. Dude, you're actually going to be so mad because there were actually back-to-back. This is actually crazy. There were back-to-back players from Utah State drafted at pick 87 and 88. Both of them were linebackers. Nick Vigil was 87. So who was 88?
Oh, come on. That's pretty good.
That is a really good poll.
That's pretty good. Who's 88?
Awesome, no, I got to give you. That's an awesome poll. It's Kyler Fackrell. Remember the Packers?
Oh, I remember Kyler for the Packers, right?
Yeah. He was a pass rusher more so, right? Was he like an edge rusher, outside linebacker type?
God, how did I get that? All right.
This was a crazy poll. That's an awesome poll.
So here's our final tier list. Hell tier, Chris Harris.
Yeah.
Not his fault, but optics-wise, can't do it.
Honorary hell tier.
D tier, Jim O'Neill would be the least inspiring hire you could possibly make.
Honorary hell tier.
Aaron Glenn would basically be the DC if he hired Jim O'Neill. He'd basically be the, like Salah with Ulbrich. C tier, Matthew Araujo, probably a little too early, but I don't hate at least poking around to see what he does, especially because he's probably not going to be retained. That could be a pseudo DB coach interview for him. if Miami doesn't retain him and then he could just go here.
That is a great point. In fact, a couple of the guys here, I would say Araujo and O'Neal very well could be brought
and Banda.
And maybe Banda. Banda would be a really good hire for this staff because he's getting DC interviews. So, yeah, those
he's
guys.
in C tier. Wink Martindale also in C tier. Your dad probably wants him, but little behind the times.
Yeah.
No, wouldn't be awful, but there's better options. Like B tier, Ephraim Banda. We think he's a pretty hot young assistant who's rising. B tier to Marcus Covington. Yep. Well respected with the Packers. New England, not great, but he's going to get another shot as a DC somewhere. Let's see if it's with the Jets. A tier, Durante Jones, bring some of that Brian Flores stuff. And S tier, pie in the sky, would make all the sense in the world, but it's tough to get him. That would be Jim Leonard.
I'd be pushing Jim Leonard head coach conversations. If the Jets are bad to start the year for the first few weeks, I'd be like, let's just give Jim Leonard a run, see what he could do. Like that, I'd be so happy if they.
You think Chris Harris? It's kind of like when they interviewed Ulbrich for head coach. It's like just out of respect because he
was always going to get an interview. Like the Jets could have given up 70 points each game over the last few games, and I mean that like they actually could have. I mean that in multiple ways. That they could have, and they still would have interviewed Chris Harris, but they also actually could have given up 70 in those games if the other teams they were playing kind of didn't let their foot off the gas pedal. The Jets were always going to bring in Harris for an interview. I know Zach Rosenblatt called him a legit candidate today, said that he's a legit candidate. Like, don't sleep on him. I'm going to sleep. I
am so tucked in. It is crazy.
Fast to sleep. If the Jets hire Chris Harris, wrap it up, boys. This
Aaron
Wisconsin next regime. They're not like that's no disrespect to Harris.
The only two wrap it up, they're done candidates would be Jim O'Neal and him.
Yeah. I agree.
But again, O'Neal might be like an Araujo thing where it's like half DC interview, half.
Who knows? Maybe Chris Harris could be a good DC one day. You just can't optically run it back with the same guy who just coached the defense for the last 4 games of last year, whatever it was.
I might turn into Jake Assman if that happens. I'm not that level, but
I might not be right far behind you. I might not be that far behind you. What does Chris Harris do well as a DC, Mike?
Well, we know that is the answer to that is 0. I'm just not going to I'm not going to go to that extreme with it.
As Brian said, if it's Harris's DC, Glenn's probably the one calling plays. Probably.
And with O'Neal, too, I think so.
Possibly, yeah. Harris for sure. I think.
I'm really talking myself into Banda a little bit more than I was.
All right. I wouldn't hate it.
Especially, too, because maybe this is wrong of me, but the more interest I see in guys around the league, like the more I want them. And if other teams want him, then I don't know. Now, again, this isn't the final. There could be more because playoff teams and all that. So, there could be more.
Yes, there could be. Well, no, Leonard's on a playoff team.
Leonard is.
This is probably it.
This might be it, but this might not be it. But these are the 8. We got some strong names, some not strong names, and some mixed names, which is kind of what we expected.
I think next week we'll get our finalists that come out. I'm expecting Martindale to be part of that finalists. I really don't know who else would be a part of it. I mean, I'm hoping Durante Jones is on that list, obviously hoping against the odds that Jim Leonard is as well. I don't know if he will be.
I think Covington might be.
Covington might be too. If I'm tier ranking like order of who I think is most
likeliest, who do you think the final 3 is going to be?
This is kind of just vibes based as well. Like obviously we don't have any inside sourcing with this. Martindale, I think makes the most sense just as a marriage of desperation. I think he's clearly the most likely option. Number 2, I would love it if they got Durante. I think Durante Jones would be a finalist, but I'll put him 3rd, and then maybe 2nd is Covington. I don't know. I don't really know. They don't have any ties to Covington, Banda, or Araujo, so there's nothing that distinguishes them for me in terms of like who's the most likely to get brought in. I just hope it's not O'Neal and Harris would be my take. And I think Whit Martindale is the leader in the clubhouse. Other than that, hands up. I don't know.
And we're going to call time on this emergency Jet Press podcast right here. Thanks for tuning in a little bit late night before you're going out on the town Friday night or whatever activities you may be getting into. Justin, feel free to take us home.
Yeah, man. I'm about to pop over to Connor Long stream. So shout out Connor Long. He's having me on.
Back to back.
NY Flight Jets Talk. I'm hopping on right after this. So
I'm going to go get some dinner. I'm going to make some pasta. So
I'm going to eat dinner at some point tonight. But if you want to hear some more Jets Talk, you can follow me over there. But yeah, this was a fun little emergency stream on a Friday evening. Don't normally get to do this. But anyway, thank you all for joining us on the show today. You can follow Mike on Twitter @ByMikeShaw. Actually, really quick. I don't know if once again, I do this to you all the time. might have to reschedule the podcast next week. I do this to you all the time, and I tell you.
Okay, well, we'll see about that.
So TBD if we are streaming on Wednesday next week. Possibly I could stream from where I'm going to be, but we'll see. But anyway, you can follow Mike on Twitter at Mike Luciano. Follow me on Twitter, Justin T. Fried. Follow Jet Press on Jet Press. Download the Jet Press podcast wherever you get podcasts. Check us out on YouTube and TikTok. Subscribe, hit the notification bell. You can also become a member today. It is 99 cents. I did check. It's only 99 cents, Mike. And it's a great way to help support the show and get your comments prioritized in chat. You guys know what to do. We stream live every Wednesday at 3 p.m. Eastern time, and whenever there is an emergency that we need to talk about. Thank you all for listening to Jet Press Podcast. I've been Justin Fried. That's Mike Luciano. Brian says tune in for the next emergency podcast when the Jets conduct in-person interviews. Yeah, if they announce their finalists and they're like, here are the 3 guys that we brought in for in-person interviews, we'll probably do a podcast then.
You're going to see a lot more podcast frequency probably this year, so that's going to play into that.
But anyway, I've been Justin Fried. That's Mike Luciano. See you guys next time.
See you folks whenever we stream next.